So that's so everything I just went over in terms of data entry, this is sort of your first step. Like I said, throughout the month, you can continue doing whatever it is you were doing before, but before you get ready to submit, you need to get that data into our system in one of those, 3 ways: manual daily, manual monthly, or using our export and import functionality. Once you have data in the system for a monitoring period, so we've got data in there for September 2025. We'll take another look at it. We're looking, okay, our data's good. It's full, it's complete. We're ready to submit that monthly report to ADEM. In order to do that, we go to our second option on the left-hand navigation. Yes. Oh, sorry, I thought someone said something. Okay. All right. So in order to get data to us for a compliance submission, you have to go to the Prepare Monthly Report option on that navigation menu. So we've got data entered. We're ready to sort of prepare a report and give it to ADEM. When you go to this page, again, you'll see a PWS ID selection for those people who work with multiple water systems. Again, we'll choose Otagoville. We'll choose September as our monitoring period, and then we'll just click Prepare New Report. And what this does when you click it is it takes all that raw data you entered, it copies it over to sort of some submission records, and gives you a page where you're going to do a couple of things before you can submit that report to us. The first thing you're presented with is this general flow balance form. All of the previous MORs had some version of this, and the goal was to sort of get a running, more of a live accounting of how many service connections you had, and your water loss calculations, to build a better record of that. So what we did is we sort of made this form universal. So now it just applies to everyone. And when you fill this out, you should get a water loss calculation at the end. So I'm just going to make up some numbers here. We'll say they got 1,250. They don't have any surface water, so 0. They don't. They do purchase water, which they had reported on their master meters. So we'll just say they purchased 50,000. You would actually have this number to submit to us. The water sold is the total water sold to other water systems, customers. Your total water sold. So we'll just say they sold 110. Your known loss, obviously breaks, firefighting, your backwashes, things like that. So we'll just say they did 5,000. And you can see as I'm typing these numbers in, it's calculating my raw water loss and my corrected water loss automatically. You have the ability to edit, modify, change any of these numbers if you feel like you have different calculations. If you do things like your water loss calculations are based on mid-month to mid-month readings, as opposed to 1st through the 31st or 1st through the 30th, you can put those numbers in here and add a comment in this tab up here that water loss calculations are mid-month to mid-month, or whatever day to whatever day. So we'll make sure we save that form. When we save it, you will see at the top we get a little green check mark, says, hey, this form is done. And on the left-hand side in the menu item, we get a little green check mark. So that these little green check marks are telling you, hey, this item in your report preparation is done. You've filled it out correctly and you saved it. If you notice, we've got those interconnections, treatment plants, wells. That data we entered is still listed over there, but it doesn't have green check marks. The only thing you have to do here is scroll to the bottom and click Approved Data. The idea and the goal here is that this is giving you one last opportunity to sort of visually scan this data and look for anything, a decimal place that got put wrong, a number that seems out of whack, giving you that one last opportunity to review and revise this data if you need to. If you need to revise it, there's a button at the bottom that says Revise. You can click that. Let's say this first number really should have been 1263. I can click Revise. It will take me back to this page, this data entry page. I can edit that number. I can hit Save and Return. Brings me right back. I can click Approve, and then I get my little green check mark at the top, little green check mark on the left. That item is done. Do the same thing for the treatment plants. All this data looks good. We'll approve it. Little green check marks. Wells, data looks good. We'll approve it. And then once you have green check marks all the way down this left-hand side, you will see this submit report button becomes active. Up in the top right-hand corner, you get a status of ready to submit. You can click the submit report button here, and it will take you to a page. It spins for about 10 to 15 seconds while it's sort of generating that report in the background. So we'll let it. And then you will be presented with what you're used to seeing, which is your security question answer and your password. And so I don't remember the answers to mine. So I'm going to back up before I submit this. We'll go to our prepare monthly report page. Again, because what I want to show you is this is the page we started at to prepare this report. We have a pending report here, and it says report is complete, ready to submit. So I can also hit submit here. I can view it if I want to look at it again, or I can also just delete it. If I started this report too early, I still need to enter some data. I can just delete it and go back to data entry, punch in the data, and then restart it. So we will try to submit this. I'll see if I remember some of these questions to these answers. Probably not. Get locked out. I won't do that, but. And I will say this might spin for, this usually spins for about 10 to 15 seconds on the submittal process. Their ADEM as a whole has experienced some issues with their email server, and it's causing these submissions to hang up. You might have noticed in the last day or two, you didn't get like a submission receipt. So I'm not going to let this spin forever, but okay. So it went through and then takes us to our submissions page, shows it to us. We can click this download link on the left-hand side, which will grab that PDF that came to ADEM. Hopefully. Yeah, so it downloads into your browser, and my screen sharing stuff is in the way. And then now you can see submitted 10/9 by Alex Javers, has that general flow balance form, has any comments we put here. And then there's a page for each of those drop-down options. Here's our interconnection data, here's our treatment plant data, and here's our well data. If you had so many treatment plants or so many wells that it cascaded across pages, it has a max number of columns, and it will just continue down to the next page for as many as you have. So that's the simplest walkthrough of submitting for, say, like a grade 2 system that just has straightforward master meters, wells, and treatment plants. The one thing that is slightly different is everybody's used to sort of reporting their flow right next to their treatment on the well itself. And we've sort of broken that out where the flows are on the sources and the treatments on the treatment plant for those cases where several sources go to one treatment plant. The old forms didn't really capture that very well, and these newer forms do. So is there any questions on that submittal process? Yes, Steve, I see your, as far as, what you submit in terms of like the general flow balance form or flows in general, you just, if you have a unique case, you just got to work with the drinking water branch, the inspectors, on what those requirements need to look like. I think that there's certain information we're required to gather through these MORs, and there's certain information that is like more good for I won't say good for business, but it allows us to have data to make certain assessments in the future. Like if someone calls and says, hey, this is going down, there's more we can do with this electronic data now. And so I would just work with your inspector if those requirements need to be adjusted or customized. What I'm showing you and what most of you have seen is sort of default requirements applied across the universe. But the idea is that each system would work with their inspector to get their requirements custom tailored to their specific water systems operations, so it's reflective. Yeah, and the NTNCs, Jessica, are also, some of those are unique scenarios. They're a little bit different than, say, like a community water system serving a residential area. And so the monitoring requirements may need to be adjusted there as well. And like I said, talking with your inspector and the supervisors in the drinking water branch, the regulatory people who are making the regulatory decisions, they'll have to sort of review those records and say, okay, here's the data that we need. For example, we have an NTNC that is a surface water system, and they need to be reporting their specific elements we're supposed to gather from them for rule compliance through the MORs. And in the past, sometimes that has gotten overlooked. So I really think it's a matter of each system working with their inspector, setting up a meeting, say, hey, let's look over this and talk about our requirements, and getting those customized for each system. But we do want some consistent requirements across the board, so that when we do reporting and things like that, we know what we're looking for. But there will always be unique cases and custom cases that need to be handled. And then a lot of them, like I said, we applied like for grade 2s, you probably saw iron, manganese, pH. Most people don't treat for that, but it's easier to take it away than it was to add it. We'd rather have it there and you not report it than not have it there and it just be missed. And so if you see stuff that you aren't required to do, that shows up, just call your inspector, say, hey, we don't treat for iron or manganese, so we need to get those off our report. They can put an end date, it'll stop showing up for you. It'll make your report simpler to get that data in. All right, so we walked through entering data for a grade 2 system, preparing that monthly report and submitting it, and then viewing that submission. So I do want to, for Otagoville, in this stage environment, I'm a certifier. So I was able to do everything. I could enter the data, I could prepare and submit the report, I could view the submission. For my other permission that I have is Selma as a preparer. And I chose Selma specifically because they're a grade 3 system. So they're a little bit more, they have a little bit more complex monitoring requirements. And I wanted to make sure I touched on some of those grade 3s in case any of those were attending this. So let's look at Selma's requirement versus Otago. So we'll go to their September monthly report, their monthly data entry. And you'll notice one thing about their drop down. They've got those similar groupings. They don't have any consecutive connections, but they've got a group of treatment plants, which is just a normal well treatment plant type thing. And then they've got their wells with their raw water flows. But then you'll notice they have a listing for just a specific facility. For grade 3 systems, especially ones that do like advanced filtration, they will have this because sometimes we need filter specific reporting. Now, I'm not saying this is accurate to Selma's. I just set this up for demonstration purposes. But they're doing a little bit more than sort of a common treatment. They're adding some polymer. They have filtration, so they're doing some monitoring, per filter monitoring. And so those would show up in their own facility, but the process is exactly the same. I could export their requirements to Excel, grab that Excel document. I could fill this out with data, and then I can import it back in, the same way I did for the grade 2 system. So if you're an operator who works for multiple systems, or you have a more unique custom case, once your requirements are set up, grabbing that Excel, tracking that data, and importing it each month is really, a really straightforward process that allows you to just do the preparation part in our system. So you import it, prepare it, approve the data, and submit it to us. Once you sort of get that process down, it may take you really 15 minutes to import, approve the data, and submit it to us. So are there any questions on any of that? Or does anybody want to see anything again? So yeah, go ahead, Richard. I think you can unmute yourself. Let me, hold on. I can't hear you, Richard.
I have just one. I have just one well. Now all my treatment is I have one well. All my treatment is done there at the well. So under the data entry, do I just click the well when I do my entry?
Yes. So that's I know it seems a little counterintuitive because a lot of people, like I said, used to do their flow and their chlorine right there next to each other on the EMOR under the well. What we did was split the flow, so split the requirement. So now the flow will be reported on the well, and what you'll see is a treatment plant listed for that well, and the chlorine will be reported there. And the reason for that is in our system and the way EPA looks at water systems is the well and the treatment part of that well is a separate facility. So I know you don't have it's not a treatment facility, it's not a plant, but we consider anywhere you're adding treatment, that's considered a treatment plant type facility. We have to track it like that, and we want the data to be attached to it. And so our system is set up like well one, treatment plant one is for well one, but even though you're just adding chlorine. So yeah, you'll see what system are you working with?
Pollard water system.
You said Pollock?
Pollard, Pollard.
Oh, okay, yeah, Pollard. I was actually we can look up and see we can just check you out and what the requirements are set up right now. This one, Pollard?
Yes.
So, yeah, so what you've got now is, you've got a well one that's going to have a flow with it. And then you've got a treatment plant that's going to, right now you've got sort of the default requirements. Are you just adding chlorine?
Yes.
Yeah. So your inspector, if you call them, say, hey, I'm just adding chlorine, they can end the pH and the iron and manganese. So all you have is chlorine showing up. And then you've got a consecutive connection, looks like with McCall. And so it may be an emergency connection. And if if in the event you exercise that, you just report some flow, a flow value with that, or a chlorine residual. So yeah, and those are the types of things. Like I said, I would get on there, look, and you can look back. Most of these requirements, if you just have the default, were set up to start back in February. So you can look back at any monitoring period and play around with it pre-October. You can fill one out. You can grab an old EMOR and see if you can get the data in for an old month and just try to submit it. And then, that way you've done it once or twice. And that way like I said, gives you, what's in there. You can call your inspector and say, hey, I'm seeing a few things that I'm not supposed to report. Let me, can we work on this and get it correct? So, but yeah, flow will be on the well, chlorine will be on the treatment plant. And then an alternative flow and chlorine will be on the master meter if you used it that month. So,
okay.
Any other? Yes, go ahead.
So the September report, does it have to be submitted EMOR or
no? Starting with the October report. With the October report, the one that's due November 10th, that's the one that we're really asking, like saying it's required. The September one, like I said, I highly encourage you for any report September and before to just hop on and practice submitting one or two. It's not going to be used for compliance. It can give you some indication of like, okay, I'm sort of got my data already in a format that makes it easy to get in, or maybe I need to, update my Excel, or like I said, maybe I need to call my inspector. But yeah, the October report is the one where that when we send out the email, that's we said it's going to be required with the October period, the one that's due on November 10th.
Okay, so, thank you.
And what you will see is come November 1st through 10th, when people go to submit, when you go to the documents submit EMOR page, there'll be, if you select the EMOR document type, you'll see some messaging, hey, EMOR is now required, and there'll be a link there that takes you to the data entry page. So yeah, any other questions? I said, I'd be happy just to run through the process again, just for anybody that wants to see it. Might be worth it since let me just go through the data entry part one more time, since I wasn't recording at the beginning, and just to capture it. And then I can clip the video in reverse when we get done and post it somewhere for y'all. So just to reiterate really quickly, to enter data in the system, EMOR's data entry, you have several options: daily, monthly, export and import. Export to Excel, grab a template, fill it out, and import it from that template. You know, so first choose your water system, choose your monitoring period. We already did September, so let's just choose May. And then I'm just going to import that from the template that we already had filled out. Let's see which one it was. Use this one. Which one I had filled out? I got it open. I don't remember which one I had. One of them's empty and one of them's filled out. And I want to figure out which ones. Let's see. Okay, June's filled out. So like I said, I know the export has a date on it, but it's a universal. It just grabs the date that you selected, but when you exported it, but I can import that. So that way it was for Otagoville, May. I started on import, it imported. So now if I go to that monthly view, you can see it's full of data. So like I said, if you're just filling up that external Excel and you import it at the end of the month, it is, I mean, it's a super fast process. The one thing I will point out is that if it fails, or if you need to override or something like that, you can choose the same month and do an import, and it will delete and overwrite whatever's in there. And so what you're seeing below here is it's just a log. If you happen to get in a situation where you have a lot of data and you find that not all of it's getting imported, if you download this import summary, it basically captures this log. If you send us that in the Excel that you're trying to import, we can usually look at it and figure out maybe what's going on. But that's just more of a debug troubleshooting tool that can really help ADEM staff figure out, you know, why your data is not getting imported. But for the most part, as long as you don't edit that Excel very much other than entering data, it works pretty straightforward. So that's it. That's it, entering from an import. Obviously, we can go back to that monthly. We can edit any of this data that we want. Like we only grabbed 30 days because we used, you know, we only had 30 days filled out because we did that one for June. So we can, you know, put some new data in here, save changes. So like I said, please don't worry about that editing. We're aware of that issue and we're trying to resolve that. I think we have fixed it in our test system. We just haven't released the fix for it yet. So I'll just fill out these last rows real quick and we'll go and we'll submit this one. Okay. All right. So just like that, you know, able to quickly jump between enter data. On the data entry page, if we go back to that daily view, say look at our consecutive connection, you can see for May, we can scroll through and we can look at all the data that we entered. Like I said, this is going to be really useful if someone's out in the field and really just wants to capture, hey, I just took a chlorine at this master meter, but you know, I can literally just log into EDWRS and log it on that daily form, and it will be there at the end of the month when I get ready to submit. So the only thing, obviously, if you're keeping calibration logs and things like that, you probably have a field notebook or something. So, and then once we've entered our data for that month, go to prepare monthly report, choose May, prepare a report, and again, we're, you know, gives us our flow balance form. So we'll just make up some numbers here, and then we'll save that. We'll approve our data. We'll approve. Get green check marks all the way down. We can go to submit, and it will ask us some questions. I'm totally guessing on the answer. I answered all these questions one through 5, but I did it on Tuesday and I forgot to save the little screenshot. So I don't remember which order I answered them in. Hey, look at that. And then it submits it just fine. And then we can download that report for our records. And so last thing I'll sort of mention before we wrap this up is you just watch me enter data for several periods, prepare and submit that data to us, view those submissions. If an ADEM inspector was to call you and say, hey, I was reviewing your, you know, September 2025 EMOR, and I noticed that you missed reporting chlorine on these days, or there was some decimal places out of place, and they wanted you to do a revision. The data you entered never leaves the system. It's in a raw data state, working tables. It's never deleted. So if you need to do a revision for any reason, you can go back to that period, find the data that needs to be revised or added or whatever, edit that, and then prepare another submission. So if I say called you in September, I say, hey, you didn't give us any flows for, well one in September. I missed that. Then you can run in there, punch in those flows, and then do the prepare monthly report process again and submit a revision to us. And so that way you don't have to keep up with those, where that data was stored, where you're keeping it. We will always keep any data you submit to us in sort of a raw data entry format for you to do some revisions later. And so with that, I will sort of do kind of a one last call for questions. Let's see. Make sure there's nothing in the chat. Okay, yeah, Sean, on the template. So when you log in to EDWRS, go down to Moore's data entry, select your water system, and say, the September 2025, and then click the export to Excel button. So when I go here, data entry, Otagoville, September, this export to Excel button that's right here is how you get that template. When you click it, it downloads in your browser. You might have to look at the top right. Sometimes it gets blocked by a pop-up but when I open that, depending on the month you select, it will. So I selected September to grab it. If there's already data for that month, it will pull that data with it. Just in case, hey, I started entering it, but now I want to download it. But you can just delete that data in those spaces. And now you can save this as sort of your master template. You can use it every month. It goes to 31 days. If you fill it out for a month that only has 28, 29, or 30, it will only read the number of days for whatever month you import for. So like if I was to fill this out for 31, but then I wanted to use it for February, so I only filled it out to say 28, or I filled it out to 28, but forgot to delete 29 through 31, it's just going to ignore those rows because those days don't exist in the month. So consider this a master template. And then what I would do if you want to use it, fill it out for each month, save it with the month, and then import it for that month, and then use the master month after month. If your requirements change, go in there and grab it for any month after those requirements changed. So that if you added a new interconnection, or you added a new well, you need to grab it again. It's that way. That's how the import will continue to work. I will say that if you delete one of these sheets or delete a column, or it will only read columns that haven't been altered. So if you've got a situation where some people are keeping up with some data, some people are keeping up with others, they can just import their part of the data. You can import your part of the data. That may be more useful for larger, more complex systems. But this will read whatever is in here and hasn't been altered. So yeah, that's where you get it from. And I think that's it. So if there's no other questions, then we'll wrap up there. But like I said, when it comes to your reporting requirements, talk with your inspector, give them a call and work with them to get them, where they're applicable to the things you were doing, sort of custom tailored to your water system's operations. If you have technical issues, shoot an email to that edwr@adem.alabama.gov. That's the support email. That's monitored by a few of us. What's up, Jack?
Hey, Alex, Susan had a question in the chat about the 4-log removal sheet. I just wanted to make sure you saw that.
Yes. So we did get an email from a water system asking about wells that do 4-log removal. There's a form that some people, there is an ADEM required form for 4-log removal. We found that it was a little bit inconsistent on this form getting reported. And there is a enhancement in the works to get this added as a form to groundwater systems that would show up for those systems where it applies, or those wells where it applies. It's not a huge universe. But for now, if you are one of the systems that does 4-log removal and you're submitting I think it's called the Mod 8 form or something like that, that just needs to be done through a PDF submission. Just I don't know which document type they would prefer you use, but for now, that is not available in EMOR, but there is an enhancement to get it added. So if you're one of those systems who does 4log, the next couple months, you might look for an enhancement to start reporting 4log information via that process. So yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe, yeah, might have to check with drinking water on what document type, but you can always do CORR and it'll come in. But yeah, we do plan on adding 4log information. And what you'll see, just real quick, if you're one of those systems, what you would see if you do 4log is on this well page when you're preparing your report, you'd see a forms tab at the top, and under that forms tab, there would be a form to fill out if you're doing 4log at any of those wells. And so that process is also fairly straightforward, and it's covered in the user guide as well. So when it pops up, we'll ensure that it's thoroughly covered, and maybe a quick sort of reference guide is put out for it. So other than that, if there's no other questions, permission limit. Oh yes, I'm sorry, Susan. Sorry. The last thing, I know I keep saying the last thing, but I forgot about this. I want to sign back in real quick and show you. So I mentioned that I was only a preparer for Selma. So basically everything you saw me do, I can do except for submitting the report. So I'll just do it like this real quick. Let me just put in some numbers. Save some stuff in here. All right, I'm just going to approve all this real quick and get it to where I can submit. All right, so I'm still a certifier for Otagoville. So when I go here, you see report complete, ready to submit. The submit button is green. If I go make myself a preparer only and then go back for Otagoville, you'll see it says report complete, ready to submit, but the submit button is no longer available to me. If I hit view, it's no longer available to me. And so basically, that's telling me, hey, you don't have permissions to submit this report. And I think if I log back out and log back in, it should give me a message. I actually never tested that, so let's see. Yeah, so see that submit button's not available to me, and it's not available to me here. If I was to enter this when I had started this report as a preparer, there's usually a message up here that says this user does not have permissions to submit this report. So if anyone ever gets to this page and everything's good to go, but they can't click the button, check their permissions. And then, yeah, that's the only limitation. You can do everything else except for click submit at the end of the day if you're a preparer only. But I think most of the people doing these, y'all been submitting EMORs, so you should have the proper permissions. But if you have someone new, that's something to look at. So. And with that, I will do one last call for questions and we'll close out. So, like I said, just reach out to Drinking Water Branch if y'all have any additional questions. They'll be sure to get you a response. So, thanks everybody for joining. We'll try to get this video posted somewhere where you can check back in on it if you need to. So.